Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood at the viewport of the Earth Defense Station, Horizon, watching the approaching alien fleet with practiced calm. The Axari vessels looked like perfect geometric shapes, dodecahedrons of gleaming metal that seemed to defy the chaotic nature of space itself. Their formation was mathematically precise, each ship maintaining exact distances from its neighbors. "They're hailing us again," Lieutenant Park announced from his communication station. "Third time in the last hour." Elena smiled slightly. "Let them wait another few minutes. I'm curious to see how they handle deviation from their expected response patterns." The Axari had arrived 24 hours ago, their fleet emerging from what they called structured space, their version of faster-than-light travel that relied on creating perfectly ordered corridors through the cosmos. Their first message had been a masterpiece of calculated intimidation, delivered in flawless Earth Standard English thanks to their advanced universal translators. "Maintaining radio silence," Park confirmed, his fingers dancing over his holographic interface. "Their formation is showing signs of minimal drift. Looks like the waiting is getting to them." Elena nodded, taking a sip from her thermos of tea. The Axari's first message had been clear. Earth was to submit to their perfect hierarchy, or face immediate consequences. They had been quite proud to demonstrate their technological superiority. Their energy shields, their matter conversion weapons, their perfectly synchronized fleet movements. What they hadn't realized was that humanity had been watching them for years. "Signal the Chaos Division," Helena ordered. "Tell Captain Chen she can begin Phase 1 whenever ready." The Axari's weakness had been obvious to human observers. Their entire civilization was built on principles of absolute order and predictability. Their technology, while advanced, was developed along purely logical lines. Each innovation built perfectly upon the last in a straight, unwavering line of progress. Humans had taken a different path. The first sign that something was wrong came when 3 of the Axari ships reported sensor ghosts. Their perfect formation wavered slightly as their sensors detected phantom energy signatures that appeared and disappeared at random intervals. "They're scanning with everything they've got," Park reported, grinning. "The quantum flutter drives are giving their sensors fits." Elena watched as the first human ships revealed themselves, or rather, as they allowed themselves to be partially perceived. The vessels of the Chaos Division didn't so much appear as suggest their presence, their quantum state hulls existing in multiple possibilities simultaneously. The Axari fleet's formation contracted slightly, a defensive response that would have been perfect against conventional attackers. "Open a channel," Elena ordered. "I believe it's time we had a proper conversation." The main screen lit up with the image of the Axari commander, a tall, crystalline being whose form seemed to echo the geometric perfection of their ships. "You dare to keep us waiting. We are the perfect hierarchy. Masters off." "Yes, yes," Elena interrupted politely. "Your message was very impressive. I particularly enjoyed the part about your matter conversion weapons. The mathematical proofs you included were quite elegant, though I notice you're still using base 12 quantum calculations. We found that limiting several decades ago." The Axari commander's crystalline form flickered, their equivalent of a blink of surprise. "Impossible. Our calculations are perfect. There is no other way to." "Oh, but there is," Elena said. "You see, that's humanity's greatest strength. We never assume there's only one way to do anything. While you were perfecting your structured space drives, we were experimenting with quantum uncertainty engines. While you were building bigger weapons, we were figuring out how to exist in multiple states of possibility." As if to demonstrate her point, one of the human ships performed what would have appeared to the Axari as a complete impossibility. It seemed to split into 5 distinct probability states, each one occupying the same space from a different quantum angle. "This defies all logic," the Axari commander protested. "Your species cannot have developed such technology. You still use chemical rockets for planetary launches." Elena laughed. "Oh, those. We keep those around partly for nostalgia, partly because sometimes the simplest solution is still useful. We're quite fond of our history. She paused, taking another sip of tea. But perhaps we should discuss why you're really here. Your hierarchy isn't actually interested in conquering Earth, are you? You're here because your long-range sensors detected something you couldn't explain, and that terrifies you. The commander's crystalline form vibrated slightly, a sign of agitation. How did you know? Because we've been watching you struggle with it for months. That mysterious quantum anomaly at the edge of your space, that's one of our deep research stations. We've been studying you just as much as you've been studying us. The difference is, we understood what we were looking at. The silence that followed was profound. Alina could almost see the calculations racing through the commander's crystalline mind, trying to reconcile this new information with their worldview. We have much to discuss, the commander finally said, their tone markedly different. Indeed we do, Alina agreed, and we're happy to share our insights. Humanity has learned that the universe is far too interesting to be approached from just one angle. Perhaps it's time for your hierarchy to consider some controlled chaos in its calculations. As the human ships danced through quantum possibilities around the rigid Axari fleet, Alina couldn't help but think that this was exactly why humanity had thrived among the stars. Not because they had better technology or stronger weapons, but because they had never stopped asking, what if? The real question now was, were the Axari ready to start asking the same? The Axari commander, who had introduced himself as Perfect Sequence 793, stood in the observation deck of Earth Defense Station, Horizon, his crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns as he watched a group of human children playing in the station's zero-gravity recreational area. This is, he paused, searching for the right word, inefficient. Admiral Rodriguez watched as the children invented a new game on the spot, combining elements of tag with an impromptu competition to create the most interesting slow-motion somersault. Is it? They're developing spatial awareness, creative thinking, social skills, and having fun while doing it. But there is no structure, no defined objective. How do they measure success? They don't need to, Alina replied. That's something I think you're struggling to understand about humans. Not everything needs a measurable outcome to have value. The meeting had been going on for 3 hours, and 793 had requested to observe human behavior firsthand. Alina suspected the Axari were still trying to understand how humanity had developed technologies that, by their rigid logical standards, should have been impossible. Your quantum flutter drives, 793 said, changing topics abruptly. Our scientists have analyzed the data. The equations suggest a 57% chance of catastrophic failure in any given operation. Alina smiled. Correct. That's why they work. This makes no sense. The commander's crystalline form vibrated in frustration. You cannot base a transportation system on probability factors that favor failure. But that's exactly what we did. A new voice joined the conversation. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of the Quantum Physics Division, approached with a holographic display hovering before her. We don't try to eliminate the probability of failure. We embrace it. 793's form shifted to face her directly. Explain. Your civilization developed faster than light travel by creating perfect, structured corridors through space. Yuki began, manipulating the hologram to show two contrasting models. You force order onto chaos. We took the opposite approach. Our drives work because they might fail. This is a paradox, 793 stated. Exactly. Yuki's eyes lit up. By accepting and incorporating the probability of failure into our quantum calculations, we actually ensure success. It's like quantum surfing. Instead of trying to part the waves, we ride them. Alina watched as the commander processed this. His crystalline structure showed subtle signs of what she was beginning to recognize as cognitive distress. Your species deliberately introduces chaos into your systems, he said slowly. You cultivate uncertainty. Now you're getting it. Alina nodded. Look at those children again. They're not following a preset program, but they're learning and adapting faster than any rigid system could allow. That's humanity's secret weapon. We thrive on uncertainty. A small alarm chimed, and Alina checked her wrist display. Ah, perfect timing. Would you like to see another example of how we apply this principle? We're about to test a new communication system. 793 agreed, though his crystalline structure showed signs of apprehension. They moved to the station's main control center, where a team of engineers was preparing for the test. Traditional communication systems, including yours, rely on transmitting data through space in an ordered sequence, Alina explained. We've developed something different. Dr. Tanaka, would you do the honors? Yuki initiated the system. On the main display, 2 quantum-entangled particles appeared, separated by several light-years, but somehow maintaining a perfect connection. This is known technology, 793 stated. Quantum entanglement communication. Theoretically possible but practically unfeasible due to the impossibility of maintaining coherence at such distances. That's what we thought too, Yuki said, her fingers dancing over the controls. Until we stop trying to maintain coherence and instead learn to use decoherence itself as a communication medium. The display showed what appeared to be complete chaos, quantum states shifting and collapsing randomly. But within seconds, clear messages began emerging from the noise. How? 793's question was barely a whisper. We created an AI that thinks in quantum probability states, Alina explained. It doesn't try to send clear signals. It sends possibilities, and the receiving system interprets the pattern of collapse itself as data. The more chaos in the system, the more bandwidth we have. The commander was silent for a long moment, watching as the quantum communication system transmitted more data in a minute than traditional systems could manage in an hour. Your entire civilization, he finally said, operates on principles that should not work, yet they do. This defies all logic. That's humanity for you, Alina smiled. We have a saying. The only thing that's impossible is convincing humans that something is impossible. Once we accept that logic has limits, we can start exploring what lies beyond those limits. 793 turned to face her fully. The perfect hierarchy has much to reconsider. Perhaps perfection itself is a limiting concept. As if to punctuate his statement, cheers erupted from the recreation area as the children invented yet another impossible game, their laughter echoing through the station like a testament to the beautiful chaos of human innovation. The holographic display in Earth Station Horizon's main laboratory showed what appeared to be a dance of light and probability. Hundreds of quantum states shifting and merging in patterns that made 793's crystalline structure vibrate with discomfort. Dr. Tanaka stood beside the Axeri commander, manipulating the controls with practiced ease. This is what human consciousness looks like at the quantum level, she explained, zooming in on one particularly complex pattern. We discovered it by accident while developing our quantum flutter drives. Impossible, 793 stated, though his tone carried less conviction than before. Consciousness is an emergent property of organized neural networks. It cannot have quantum properties. Admiral Rodriguez, watching from her position near the lab's entrance, suppressed a smile. Over the past few days, the Axeri commander had used the word impossible with decreasing frequency and increasing uncertainty. That's what we thought too, Yuki continued, adjusting the display to show a side-by-side comparison. On the left is an Axeri quantum scanner's view of space-time. On the right is how human consciousness perceives it. Notice anything interesting? The patterns were startlingly similar, complex quantum interactions that seemed to defy conventional physics. 793's form shifted through several geometric configurations as he processed this information. This suggests that human minds naturally interpret quantum phenomena, he said slowly. But how? Why? Evolution, Alina offered, stepping forward. Earth's biosphere is chaos incarnate. To survive here, life had to develop ways to process uncertainty and adapt to constant change. Human consciousness evolved not just to think, but to think in quantum possibilities. A loud alarm suddenly blared through the station. Lieutenant Park's voice came over the comm system. "Admiral, we're detecting multiple structural space corridors forming at the edge of the solar system. Axari ships, a lot of them." 793's form crystallized into sharp angles, a sign of surprise or alarm. "This is not authorized. The hierarchy would not." "They would if they thought we were a threat," Elena interrupted, already moving toward the command center. "Your initial reports about our technology must have scared them more than we realized." The command center was a flurry of activity when they arrived. The main display showed dozens of Axari warships emerging from their perfectly structured FTL corridors, their formations even more rigid than the first fleets had been. "Message from the lead ship," Park announced. "They're demanding our immediate surrender and the transfer of all quantum technology to the perfect hierarchy." Elena turned to 793. "Your people really don't handle paradigm shifts well, do they?" Before the commander could respond, Yuki's voice cut through the tension. "Admiral, request permission to demonstrate Project Schrödinger." Elena's eyes widened slightly. "That's still experimental." "So is everything else we do," Yuki grinned. "And I think our Axari friends need one final lesson in human innovation." After a moment's consideration, Elena nodded. "Do it." 793, you might want to watch this carefully. You're about to see why forcing order onto chaos never works as well as working with it. Yuki's fingers flew over her console, initiating sequences that made the incoming Axari fleet's perfect formation seem suddenly vulnerable. Around Earth's orbital space, quantum probability fields began to shift. "What are you doing?" 793 asked, his crystalline form reflecting the changing light patterns from the display. "Remember how I said human consciousness naturally interprets quantum phenomena?" Yuki explained as she worked. "Project Schrödinger takes that a step further. We're not just observing quantum states. We're actively participating in them." The space around Earth seemed to ripple, reality itself becoming fluid and uncertain. The Axari fleet's structured space corridors began to waver. "Their drive systems rely on perfect order," Elena explained to 793. "But we've learned how to manipulate quantum probability fields on a massive scale. Right now, we're introducing just enough uncertainty into their carefully structured space to make their entire approach mathematically impossible." On the main display, the Axari fleet's perfect formation began to dissolve. Their structured space corridors, unable to maintain coherence in the face of actively managed quantum uncertainty, started to collapse. "This defies all known laws of physics," 793 exclaimed. "No," Yuki corrected him, still focused on her controls. "It defies all the laws of physics you choose to acknowledge. We've learned to work with the universe's fundamental uncertainty rather than trying to impose our will upon it." The effect was dramatic. The Axari fleet, finding itself unable to maintain its structured space corridors, had no choice but to revert to normal space. Their perfect formation, now exposed to the natural quantum fluctuations of reality, amplified by human technology, began to break apart. "Send the message," Elena ordered. Park transmitted the prepared communication. "To the Axari fleet, you are currently experiencing the difference between forcing order onto chaos and learning to dance with it. We can maintain this quantum probability field indefinitely. Your structured space drives will not function within it. We suggest you take this opportunity to reevaluate your approach to both physics and diplomacy." 793, watching his civilization's most powerful weapons rendered useless by humans' embrace of uncertainty, finally understood. "We sought to perfect the universe," he said quietly. "You learned to perfect yourselves instead." Elena smiled. "Not perfect. Never perfect. Just better, day by day, probability by probability. That's the real difference between our species." 793. "You see uncertainty as a flaw to be eliminated. We see it as an opportunity to grow." As the Axari fleet hung powerless in space, surrounded by the quantum dance of human innovation, a new chapter in galactic history began to unfold, one where the perfect circles of alien logic met the beautiful chaos of human creativity, and both were transformed by the encounter. In the aftermath of Project Schrodinger's demonstration, the Grand Conference Chamber of Earth Station Horizon hosted an unprecedented gathering. Representatives from the Perfect Hierarchy's High Council had arrived, their crystalline forms arranged in precise geometric patterns, to face what they now recognized as a civilization that defied their understanding. Admiral Rodriguez stood before them, with 793 at her side. The chamber's quantum field displays showed real-time visualizations of the space around Earth, where the disabled Axari fleet still hung in their disrupted formation, surrounded by the gentle ripples of human-manipulated probability fields. "Your civilization," spoke the first perfect, leader of the Hierarchy Council, "is an impossibility that exists despite itself. We must understand how." Elena exchanged a glance with Dr. Tanaka, who nodded and stepped forward with her quantum displays. "Perhaps we should start at the beginning," Elena suggested. "Not with technology, but with stories." The crystalline forms of the council shifted in confusion. "Stories?" The second perfect questioned. "We are here to discuss your quantum manipulation capabilities." "Yes," Elena smiled, "and to understand those, you need to understand how humans think." Dr. Tanaka, "Show them the library records." The quantum displays shifted, showing thousands of years of human literature, art, and scientific speculation. Stories of impossible journeys, dreams of reaching the stars, tales of overcoming insurmountable odds. "While your civilization was building its perfect hierarchy," Elena explained, "humans were imagining countless possible futures. We didn't just theorize about quantum mechanics. We dreamed about it. Before we ever split the atom, we wrote stories about energy that could power stars. Before we reached space, we imagined 1,000 ways to traverse it. Irregular thought patterns, the third perfect observed. Inefficient." On the contrary, Dr. Tanaka interrupted, bringing up new displays showing human brain activity alongside quantum probability fields. This irregular thinking created neural patterns that naturally mimic quantum behaviors. We didn't just discover quantum mechanics, we evolved to think in quantum possibilities. The council members vibrated in obvious distress at this concept. 793, having spent more time with humans, stepped forward to translate. "My fellow perfects," he said, "I have observed humans at length. Their chaos is not disorder. It is a higher form of order that we have been too rigid to perceive. They do not merely use quantum technology, they live it." To demonstrate, Dr. Tanaka brought up a new simulation. "Watch what happens when we expose human consciousness to quantum probability fields," she said, initiating the display. The patterns of human thought and quantum possibilities merged and danced together in complex, beautiful configurations. "Our quantum flutter drives weren't engineered in the traditional sense," Elena explained. "They were dreamed into existence by minds that naturally think in possibilities. We didn't force quantum mechanics to obey our rules. We learned to think the way quantum mechanics already works." The first perfect's crystalline form shifted through several complex geometries before speaking. "This explains the failure of our analysis. We attempted to understand your technology through the lens of logical progression. When in fact, 793 completed, their technology is an expression of their consciousness, not a product of it." Elena nodded, "Which brings us to why we're really here. Your fleet remains trapped in our probability field, not because we're more powerful, but because you're trying to impose certainty on an uncertain universe. We're offering to teach you another way." The council members communicated among themselves in patterns of light that rippled through their crystalline forms. Finally, the first perfect spoke again. "Our civilization has spent millennia perfecting order. You suggest we should embrace imperfection." "Not imperfection," Dr. Tanaka corrected. "Possibility." The quantum state of a particle isn't imperfect because it exists in multiple possibilities. It's expressing its full nature. Humanity didn't become stronger by eliminating chaos. We became stronger by learning to swim in it. To demonstrate, Alina gestured to the quantum displays, where human ships could be seen maneuvering through probability space like dancers through water, their movements both precise and fluid, ordered and chaotic simultaneously. Your structured space drives tried to force reality into perfect corridors, she continued. Our quantum flutter drives succeed because they embrace all possibilities at once. We're not offering to help you abandon order. We're offering to show you how to find the order within chaos itself. The council chambers fell silent as the Axari leaders processed this fundamental challenge to their worldview. Outside, in the quantum-shifted space around Earth, reality itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the moment when perfect order would choose whether to learn the dance of chaos. 793, watching his leaders struggle with concepts that had transformed his own understanding, added softly, "Perhaps this is why we never found other advanced civilizations in our exploration of space. We were looking for perfection when we should have been looking for possibility." 6 months after the confrontation that nearly led to war, Earth Station Horizon had been transformed. Where once there were clear divisions between human and Axari spaces, now the boundaries blurred, quite literally. As quantum probability fields merged with structured space in new and fascinating ways. Admiral Rodriguez stood in the newly constructed quantum harmony chamber, watching as human and Axari scientists worked together. The chamber itself was a testament to their collaboration. Crystalline structures grew in patterns that defied traditional geometry, while quantum probability fields danced through them in calculated chaos. The results exceed all projected possibilities, 793 announced, approaching Alina. His crystalline form had changed over the months, adopting subtle irregularities that would have been unthinkable in the perfect hierarchy of old. Though I suppose exceeding possibilities is a very human concept. Alina smiled, watching as Dr. Tanaka guided a young Axari researcher through the principles of quantum consciousness integration. The researcher's crystalline form flickered with excitement as they successfully maintained a quantum probability field through pure thought for the first time. "How are the modified ships performing?" Alina asked, turning to a holographic display showing the combined fleet exercises beyond Mars orbit. "Beyond expectations," 793 replied. "By integrating your quantum flutter principles with our structured space technology, we've achieved transmission speeds that neither of our civilizations thought possible. The ships don't just travel through space-time, they dance with it." The display showed Axari vessels, their crystalline structures now laced with quantum probability fields, moving in formations that were both ordered and chaotic. They flowed through space like schools of fish, maintaining perfect harmony while constantly adapting to the quantum currents around them. "And a hierarchy?" Alina asked softly. "How are they adapting to the changes?" 793's form shifted in what Alina had learned was the equivalent of a contemplative smile. "It has not been easy. 10,000 years of seeking perfection cannot be undone in months. But," he gestured to where another group of Axari scientists was studying human art and literature alongside quantum mechanics texts, "we are learning that perfection itself is not what we thought it was." A sudden surge of energy from the quantum harmony chamber drew their attention. The young Axari researcher had successfully created a stable quantum crystal matrix, a feat that merged both civilizations' technologies in a way that should have been impossible by either species' original understanding. "Beautiful," Dr. Tanaka breathed, studying the readings. "The crystal structure maintains perfect order while the quantum field explores all possibilities. It's like a dance," the Axari researcher completed, their crystalline form vibrating with joy. "The order gives the chaos form, while the chaos gives the order meaning." Alina felt a deep satisfaction watching the scene. On the main display, the combined fleet had begun practicing the new defensive formations they'd developed together. Axari ships provided the stable framework while human vessels wove quantum probability fields through the formation, creating a defense that was simultaneously unbreakable and completely unpredictable. "We received a transmission from the Galactic Core yesterday," 793 said after a moment. "Other civilizations have noticed our collaboration. They're curious. Are they ready for what we have to show them?" Elena asked. "Perhaps the better question is, are we ready to show them something new?" 793's form shifted through several contemplative patterns. The perfect hierarchy spent millennia trying to teach the galaxy order. Perhaps it's time we learn to teach the dance instead. As if in response, the quantum harmony chamber pulsed with new energy as human and Axari scientists continued their work, their combined efforts creating patterns that neither civilization could have achieved alone. The crystalline structures sang with quantum possibilities, while the quantum fields took on an almost crystalline stability. "You know," Elena said, watching the display of their ships moving together through space, "there's an old human saying, the universe is not only stranger than we imagine, it is stranger than we can imagine." "We thought we had imagined everything possible," 793 responded. "You taught us that possibility itself is endless." In the space around them, reality itself seemed to hum with potential as two vastly different approaches to understanding the universe merged and transformed each other. The perfect geometric patterns of Axari science flowed into the quantum probability fields of human innovation, creating something entirely new, a symphony of order and chaos, of certainty and possibility. "What do you think we'll discover next?" Elena asked, watching as another successful experiment sent ripples of light through the chamber. 793's form shifted into a pattern that Elena had never seen before, something between perfect geometry and quantum uncertainty. "I have learned," he said, "that the most human answer to that question is, let's find out." Above them, the combined fleet continued its dance through space, writing a new chapter in the story of two civilizations that had found something greater than perfection. They had found possibility itself.